And so we're going to look at today, and this is such a huge topic if I just left it at the first three words. Fear of people. You want to know what every human being has? Almost every human being. I don't know if we can ever do a blanket one. Almost every human being has that we have in common with each other. Fear of people. So we're going to look at our fear. And so what I wanted to be my topic for today is, by believing in good, you shall overcome. So it's looking at what does it take for us to get back to that ability to see the good, to connect to the good that's in each person so that we can move forward in our lives and not hang out in that fear. And I want to see if any of these hit home for any of you. Have you ever had moments in your life where you fear your own spiritual power? And how powerful you can be. What responsibilities come with using your power? Do you fear using it in the wrong way, or it coming out in the wrong way or too powerful, such as not saying our own truths to others in the most gentle and loving way? Do you fear making mistakes? Do you fear being misunderstood and or ridiculed? Do you fear standing out in life? Do you fear being different from others? Based on, and you know where we start with the most elemental place is our body. Because of our height, because of our lack of, because of the color of our skin, because of so many ways that we feel we stand out. Do you fear being targeted by others? Do you fear being physically threatened? And for many men in the room, when I say that, you say, oh, no, I never felt physically threatened. I don't have a fear of that. Have you ever asked a woman? Have you ever asked, do you feel physically threatened? So that's one thing that we often we can easily overlook, is that fear of being physically threatened by others. And for women in the room, do you ever fear that being powerful will not seem feminine? Plato, that guy that had a little bit to say, about 2,000 years ago. I love this quote from him. He says, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when humans are afraid of the light." Now, when I start talking about fear of people that we might have because we've been rejected or something in our life, how we often appear on the outside is that everything looks fine. We can present ourselves in such a way that everything looks fine. Have you ever found yourself presenting yourself at work, to your family, to your friends, to whoever it is, that everything is okay? But yet inside, there's that fear percolating. That fear. That inside, truly, we're terrified. We're afraid of how you may see us. And there comes a point that the only way that we can cope with that fear is to numb it. There's at least 170 different types of addictions. That doesn't take into account all the bad behaviors, all the unhealthy things that we do, such as isolating from others, in order to numb that fear of being seen. So much of our lives are driven by that fear. That we work hard and long because it's easier than doing the more important things in our life. Have you ever found yourself being so dedicated to your job, to what you're doing, and you put so much effort into it, that you actually don't get to do what you really enjoy the most? And you know why we don't want to do what we enjoy the most? Is because as long as we're doing something, then we don't have to deal with, wow, what would we be like if we really do what we want and we put it out there and then we're rejected? How many of us have that poem to be written? That story to be told, that song to be sang, that picture to be painted, that person that we want to reach out and connect with. But we have that fear not to put it out there, so we dedicate ourselves to that job. Though we didn't recognize it, nothing scared us more than the possibility that people would actually love us for who we are. Whew. So, how does this work? There's a part of us that fears people. But there's another part of us that fears being loved and accepted for exactly who we are. How do those work hand in hand? And then the second part of that question is, what about the fear of economic insecurity? And it took me some time before I actually heard what this promise says correctly. because it's easy to get caught right up in the statement of the actual statement of economic insecurity will leave us. It does not say or imply anything about us getting rich. What it essentially is saying is that I will not worry about material needs, that we will find contentment and not be driven by scarcity. We will have the opportunity to live from abundance and see that wealth is not measured in dollar signs. We will begin to value that which cannot be bought and realize the bottomless hole of material consumption. So when we will have that opportunity to live from abundance and see that wealth is not measured in dollar signs. Anyone had that opportunity to learn that more than once? You know, because we live in a society where we equate what? Our abilities or accomplishments or our job with how much we make. And we a lot of times allow how much we make to equate to our self-esteem or how we feel about ourselves. So what is it that keeps us going forward even though it doesn't feel like we're having that much? It's because there's something inside of us that says we want to give. We want to give. And I found this quote and this example from Viktor Frankl, who many of you may know as the Australian neurologist and psychiatrist, and he's most famous as being a Holocaust survivor. And he wrote in 1946, one of the most meaningful books that has been ever printed, I believe, is Man's Search for Meaning. And here's a quote that he has while he was in the concentration camps, because he kept a log while he was in there. He says, "We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken away but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. To choose one's own way." So you see, regardless of whatever we've experienced or are experiencing currently in our life, what determines what we'll do is what is our attitude about that? Do we want to live in the fear because we've become really comfortable with it and we've become accustomed to it? Or are we willing to step out and say, look, here I am? Even though there's a few people, or what feels like a lot of people, that haven't always loved and accepted and seen who I am, that haven't really seen me, I'm still going to keep showing up. Because if I can keep showing up and keep offering my last piece of bread, I know that before long we start all offering our pieces of bread to each other. And before long, we have a shared spirit. For it's been said there is magic that occurs when we what? Break bread together. So when we share, and bread doesn't always mean material things. It doesn't always mean food. It can mean when we share spirit together, when we share those moments of compassion, when we share those moments of empathy with each other, when we put ourselves in another person's shoes the best we can and try to understand how they're seeing things and get out of our own littleness and try to see how they're perceiving us, how they're experiencing us. Are we making it easy for them to see our light, or are we really difficult for them to see our light? That even Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Gandhi, all the great teachers that have gone before us, if they were all lined up, they'd have to look twice or three times to see our light. Do we make ourselves presentable that our light is easily seen? Here I am, I'm a bright, radiant being. Or do we have a fear again because we carried it from our childhood of not showing up and saying, look, I'm a pretty damn good person that makes a lot of noise with my mic. So what is it we want in our life? Do we want to stagnate in that fear that, yes, we've been rejected one time in our life or a couple of times, and now we've stagnated in it, and so we carry it on to every new relationship, even though they've never rejected us, even though they love us, even though they want to see our light, even though they want to be around us, even though they enjoy our company? Or do we have this fear still that we have transposed and transported with us through our entire life, and every time we walk into a room, I'm afraid that you're going to reject me? Which one is it? And if we step out of that and we start showing, you know what? I'm a pretty darn good person. That's what self-help, that's what spirituality is constantly about. And the reason that we know we're a pretty good person is because we were created in the image and likeness of that thing that caused this universe to come into beingness. That thing that caused these 200 billion galaxies out there to exist to form and then created divine order in and amongst those 200 billion galaxies, also created divine order and harmony between us. And it created us in such a way, in its likeness and in its image, that when we wake up, and that's the constant thing that we're elevating our consciousness to grasping and to gaining a better glimpse, a stronger glimpse, a clearer glimpse of how incredible human beings we are. And when we walk into a room and present ourselves in such a way that we are an avenue, an opening, a window through which the divine expresses and can be seen, do you know how magnificent and magical that makes your time here on earth? We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Because we want to continue to create an environment where you can soften your heart and you can open your mind. When you open your mind, you can't help but sense and feel something greater than you. Do you know that? When we walk around closed off and just focused on this little stuff every day that we get so caught up in things that's so damn important that will never get put on our gravestone, that was a good line. And we get so focused on it that we forget why we're here. We're here to be those beacons of light, to show that God's love does exist, that God's empathy, compassion, joy is here. And why are we refraining from it and holding it and restraining it inside? We put up a song and it says, get up and dance, get up and sing. What does it take? We want to open our spirits so that when you go out into the week, that there's a little extra brightness to your smile. There's a little extra gleam in your eyes. Anybody can walk around being dull. What would happen if every day we woke up and said, Mother, Father, God, Spirit, today in all I do, I want your glory to be manifest in me. I want to walk in the direction that you want me to walk. I want to love the way that you want me to love. I want to forgive that you want me to forgive. I want to be aware of people around me and extend your love and your compassion and your peace and your joy and your grace to them. I do not want to shrink back any longer. I want to press forward. Nothing could be better than walking through life and glorifying the divinity of the universe. God, I am yours. And I say today, just like Jesus said 2,000 and some years ago, not my will be done, but yours. What difference would that make in your marriage? What difference would it make in your career? What difference would it make with your kids, your extended family, your friends, and your coworkers? And how would that impact our Center for Inspired Living? Our center would be even more full of God. We would be overflowing. Yes, overflowing in the magnificence of God's light and love.